Good. So we learned last time. What are we learning here? We're learning why was it that the goral, that the lots that they used to divide the land of Israel up back then when they came into Israel, was it 3,290 years ago, something like that. When they came into Israel in the beginning, they divided the land up according to lots, and it said that the lot would scream out. It would say, I am the lot of the tribe of Naphtali, and his portion, he gets portion number 12. So the Rebbe said, why did the lot have to scream out? There was already Eliezer a Kohen, and he had the breastplate that said the same thing. It also verified what the lots were. And the head of each tribe pulled out the lots. He already pulled them out. And miraculously, one was his name, and the other one was the plot that he had. So that was big enough miracle. And in addition to that, there was also the Ruach HaKodesh. So the Rebbe said, and not only that, this whole thing of pulling out lots was just a means to an end. It wasn't a commandment in itself. It was just a means to the end. The point of it was to divide the land up of Israel. So why did that have to be? So the Rebbe answered the reason is because that even when you're in the process of doing a holy thing, that every step of that process is also holy, even though that it's just a means to an end and it's not an end in itself. Nevertheless, the process itself is holy. And the Rebbe didn't give this example, but it's like the Jews when they were traveling in the desert to come to the land of Israel. So he said it in another sikha, when they're traveling. So the traveling in the desert was, it was just a means to an end. They just wanted to go to the land of Israel. That was the whole big point. So every time they made a campment, they should have just camped out and wait for God to tell them to. So no, everywhere they camped, they set up the tabernacle again, brand new, the whole entire thing. Tremendous amount of work. And then whenever they would travel, even if it was one day later, they would take it apart. So says the Rebbe, therefore, every single detail in the process is as important as the goal of that process. And the Rebbe illustrates with a story. It was like two stories. One story is that there were the Hasidim, the young boys in the yeshiva, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad was sitting with them. It was a Farbringen, and he was sitting with them, and he would speak. And between the speeches, they would sing, but they really wanted to hear the Rebbe speak. So they sang one song quickly. And the Rebbe gave a whole speech about you can't do that the preparation for a thing, namely the song, is as important as the thing itself, namely hearing the Rebbe speak. You have to put as much emphasis into the process, into every step of the process, as you do to the goal. And similar, there was another story where there was a chassid that lived in Lubavitcher, and he wanted to go to the land of Israel. And the Rebbe said, make here the land of Israel. Make here in, Belarus, where Lubavitch is. Make here Israel. And the Rebbe said, the Rebbe asked the question, how could he say that? I mean, the Tzemach Tzedek certainly knew that Belarus is as far from the holiness of Israel as you can get. The Israel is a holy place, even now in the time of exile. It's holy, and the doing Torah and commandments in Israel is totally different, right? It's a God's place. It's Jewish. It's the place of the Jews. How could he say make Israel in the city of Lubavitch or wherever this person lived? He said because being in exile, that's the process. The goal is to be in the land of Israel. Moshiach will bring us to the land of Israel. It's true. And it's a good thing to come to Israel now also. But don't skip over the process. Don't sing the song quickly. Don't hurry it up. The process also comes from God, and it's important, and you have to be totally involved in the process. And that answers the question why the Lot had to speak out, because The action was there. The head of the tribe drew out the two lots. That's action. The intention was there. The Urim and the Tumim, the spirit of holiness, that's the thought. But there was no speech. But the speech wasn't necessary. He says, listen, when you're in the process, it has to be as complete as possible. The process is as important as the goal. Therefore, and to show this, says, therefore the lot spoke out. It announced, it spoke, so that it was totally involved in thought, speech, and action. Says the Rebbe, the Kiv and Shagula. So it says, especially this Shabbos, which the Shabbos is the Shabbos Mavorchim. We're blessing the month of the Shabbat. And it's also Pinchas, which Pinchas says is Eliyahu. He's going to announce the future redemption. And so this gives us a special, puts a special importance, because we know, because the Shabbos itself is holy, and Pinchas is talking about the future redemption. So this it's like putting a little bit of light into the exile. It's beginning this process, as is known that Gola, exile, is 3 letters, 4 of the 5 letters of the word redemption. Geula, 4 of those 5 letters are terrible. Gola, exile. Says the Rebbe, that's the whole point. That when you are in what will bring the future redemption? That when you are in exile and you ignore the exile, you enlighten the exile. You make here, even outside of Israel, you make there Israel as much as you can. And that being in Gola, you see everywhere you look, 4/5 of what you see is just terrible. You're the 1/5 that has to put the good inside of the world, the Aleph, Therefore, it says that's what it means, that you have to be prepared. You have to be waiting, ready. Therefore, it has to be, that's what the Rebbe said also. By means of putting so much emphasis and perfection and total involvement in all of the steps to the future redemption, is by means of that we'll truly appreciate the redemption itself. Just like this person wanted to go to the land of Israel, appreciate what holiness is, prepare yourself. Then when you come to the land of Israel, in the redemption, with Moshiach, then you really appreciate it. Then we'll truly appreciate. Right? If the whole thing of Moshiach is that he's going to do all the work for us, take us, so you won't appreciate it. You come to the land of Israel. The whole purpose of the Jewish people is to serve God. That's why God took them out of Egypt. That's why he gave them the Torah. That's why he brought them to the land of Israel. Is in order to serve God. That's the whole purpose of the temple. That's where the third temple is. That's what's going to draw the Jews to Israel. There'll be the third temple, and it's the only way to serve God is when there's the temple. Serve God completely. But meanwhile, while you're outside of Israel, while you're in exile, and between us, being in Israel is sometimes the biggest exile of all. The biggest exile, at least when you're outside of Israel. So you see the non-Jews, what do you want from them? You're in Israel and you see what the government does, it acts like non-Jews. It's incredible. So says the Rebbe, really everything is already prepared. Now all you have to do is just be ready. Stand prepared for the meal, for the future redemption. Even since the Gula Dayan Lobo, since the redemption has not yet come, Ubashgacha Pratis, and whatever reason it is, we're still found here, Bamakom Zaman, in time and place. The Rebbe had a big sikha when in the future he brought from the Gemara that in the future all the Beit Knesset, all the shuls are going to fly to Israel, and they're going to fly after the main synagogue, Beit Rabbeinu Shabbavel, and they're going to fly to the land of Israel. Fly actually in the air. Right? You'll be in a plane, and you'll see these hundreds of thousands of synagogues flying. And the Rebbe said, "What's going to be the first synagogue that's going to be the leader of the flight? Is going to be 770." But says the Rebbe, since it hasn't happened yet, we're still here. But Vadai, certainly you have to use every moment to make here the land of Israel, like we said before. Make the place where you are as holy as possible. Try to ignore the exile. Make outside of Israel holy. Make Chicago holy. Make the Rio de Janeiro holy. Make Moscow holy. Make every place you can as holy as possible. Since that this thing of make here the land of Israel, make the land of Israel wherever you are, make it into Israel. Since this is an instruction from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Mori Chami, my father-in-law, Nasi Dorena, the leader of our generation, he said this in a revealed way, and before that he said it in a private way. Moving so it's understood. Shazui Hora. This is an order, a teaching, not just a teaching. A hora, this is an order, a command to every person in our generation, every Jew, every human being. Shekashurim kulon nasi dorena, because the nasi is a call, because not just the Jewish people, not just the Chabad, and not just the religious Jews, and not just the Jews, but the whole entire world depends on the tzaddik. Tzaddik Yasar Olam. And especially when we're find also in these weeks, in them we are reading the Torah because of the dividing of the land of Israel up. Ubizman, Shabo, Kavar, Hakal, Muchanasud, and everything is already for the meal, for the feast. Is therefore we're right at the edge of the redemption and the dividing up of the land of Israel. But Pashto, simply, therefore everybody has to really increase serving God. The Asakan Eretz Israel in a way that you make wherever you are into the Holy Land. Kol echad v'achat, each and every one, men, women, children, the makomo matzavahu, wherever he is and whatever situation he is in. And make this with the ultimate completion. The machshava dibur ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. Al yidei zeh, by means of this, you will accustom himself to the future redemption. And each and every one of the Jews has a portion and a job, an obligation in this world. That was given to him by God. You're being created by God? Yes. If you're not being created by God, then you're not listening to this class, that's for sure. Because everything is being created by God that exists. If you exist, then you're being created by God. If you're being created by God, you're being created by God for a purpose. Whether you are a working person, that's called zvulun, whether you are a person who learns Torah or involved in holy things, no, and every type of Jew, every person has this special purpose in the world, non-Jew as well. But let's talk about Jews first, because they're the example to the rest of the world. Each person is found in a certain different place in the world. Therefore, he has to bring that place to God. No, I'm sorry. Mistake. That to that place, God took him. I'm sorry, I don't know how, that's what it means. Every person is in a place and God brought you to that place. You're not in a place by accident. Like it says, God guides the steps of man. Since that a person is found in a place because he has to, in that place, has to make godliness. Don't think it's a mistake. You missed your bus. You took the wrong train, right? And it's a terrible thing. You're miserable and you're disgusted and you're angry and you're depressed and you think you're exactly the opposite. You didn't make the mistake. God wanted you to be wherever you are. He wanted you to be wherever you are. Maybe he doesn't want you to stay there, right? Maybe not to stay there forever, but as long as you're there, make the best of it. You're on a train. The train is not going to stop for you. And it's not going to let you off. It's not going to wait. So the time when you're there until you can come to the next stop and get off and catch another train or whatever it is, the time that you're there, use that time in order to make the place into Eretz Yisrael. Be a good example to other people. Sit and learn something in Torah. Ask a person if he's Jewish, if he wants to put on tefillin. Similarly, in time, every single moment, every single hour, every single day, every single month, every single year, every single season, that has a special service that's relevant to it. And even though that every point, Nakuda, every point in the world, and every second in time, the obligation of each and every person in the world is a little tiny piece of the world. In all, if you recognize just what small place I am and what little a bit of time I occupy in all the course of time, but sometimes a person can think, how can it possibly be that haya ilu haya hu nimsa b'makom acher b'zman acher, a person could think, if I was in another place and in another time, then maybe I would serve God in a different way. Maybe even better than it is now. And there's a person who'll think, I don't want to be here. I'm in the wrong place. Similarly, a person can ask a question, since my service is only in one little corner of the world, and especially one little detail of the world, so what can make any difference how I conduct myself here? How much more so, according to what he thinks, any effect on the whole world? Right? A person is found, who knows where, in some crazy city where there's no Jews over there, suddenly realizes, well, I'm a Jew. What possible good could I do over here? I got to get out of here fast. Yetera, even more. Shoal, who a person could say, Ketzad Tovim, how can God or the Rebbe, how can the Rebbe demand from me that I should bring the redemption? Geula Klolis, the whole world is going to be redeemed. The whole world will be different. Everyone will reveal all their true potential. I'm going to cause that. I just have a little tiny place in the world and a little tiny place in time. To this, we say to each and every person, Yesh L'cha haro, you have orders from the leader of the generation. Aseh kan Eretz Yisrael, wherever you are. And no matter how little time you have, make that little place and that little time into the Holy Land. I mean, listen, the Eretz Yisrael is also very small. Just look at land of Israel itself, right? How many Jews are there in the world? How many Jews live in the land of Israel, right? How many Jews in the land of Israel even, reckon themselves to act like Jews, think like Jews, speak like Jews? And Israel is always in the news. It's always in the attention of the United Nations, and Israel is this and Israel is that. And they thought about throwing a stone back at this guy. Threw a stone, they threw a shot, 1,000 rockets at us. They wanted to kill everybody, and we killed one of their people. This is the worst thing in the world. The Jews are Nazis. They're just a bunch of terrible. They have to pay reparations for what they did. In the whole world, everybody's killing everybody else like flies. You don't even see it in the papers. It's not even mentioned. Right? Once in a while, you remember how many people were killed in Rwanda 50 years ago. Who knows? What are you talking about? People are killing each other in the world like you spray ants. Nobody even talks about it. Oh, Israel, what they did and what they're thinking about doing, what they're considering. Says if such a little country has such a big effect, and this not necessarily for good things, for sure a good thing will have a tremendous effect, but it means make here Israel. Just like the land of Israel is so small and it's so important, so wherever you are, make that into the Holy Land, and you'll see how important it is. It should be expressed to your service, not just in thought about what has been done in one end of the world, in another time, etc. A person has to be sunk totally in thought, speech, and action, in making here the land of Israel. In your particular place, in that particular time, make Israel wherever you are. What does that mean? Do as much holiness as you can. Think positive thoughts, think good thoughts, say good things, say a word of Torah. And it could be that you'll think, well, this has no effect whatsoever, and people don't. But listen, just think about this 1 second. 8 billion people in the world, 9 billion people in the world, they could live their whole lives and never hear one word of truth. Not one word of truth. Not one word of real, a genuine Torah word. And if they do hear a word of the Torah, it gets all twisted and weird. And interesting, it says that what the Rambam writes, that's one of the purposes, one of the, if you want to call it the saving graces, if you want to call it, of Christianity and Islam. Even though that it's totally wrong and that the religions are totally false and wrong, but they have something good. It's based somehow or other on Torah, and they mention Torah and they talk about Moshiach. And so people become aware that there is such a thing. Without that, they would be aware of nothing. And only by means of this, and if this is done in such a twisted way, and nevertheless the Rambam says it has some sort of a benefit, how much more so if we do it in a genuine way? But they said by means of this, we can bring in the whole entire world, in every place and at every time, since and your part of the world is the whole entire world. It's something like a person is sick, they give him an injection. Don't think I'm in any way, form, or shape saying that injections are always good and inoculations, but nevertheless, there are times when a person gets a shot, it really helps. It really helps the person. And so it's a little tiny point in the person, right? But nevertheless, it can cure the whole person. Al derech kafi, like it was, just like dividing up the land of Israel. So if you do a little bit of good, it can heal the whole world. And what is that good? Torah, commandments, what the Rebbe wants. That even though Shekol Shevet, that each and every tribe and every family and every tribe received a certain part of the land of Israel, that every person received only a little bit, even when they divided the land of Israel. But every person, every little place of land in Israel contained in some way all the rest of the land of Israel. Eretz Israel, the land that's here, the eyes of God are on it from the beginning of the year until the after the year. That's what the rabbis say. In Eretz Israel chasera klum. The land of Israel is not missing anything. Lo sechsar kol ba. Nothing is missing in the land of Israel. And even a little tiny point of the land of Israel. Kamaymer Chazal, like the rabbis say, in l'chal Yisrael, mi Yisrael she'en lo bahar. There's no Jew in the land of Israel that doesn't have a little bit of a mountain, a little bit of a plain, a little bit of a valley, a little bit of a plain, a little bit of a Kamuvan. And there's every Jew in Israel is partaking of all of Israel. Kamuvan is like we got to understand that each and every Jew has to say that Bishvili Nivra Olam. Every single Jew has to say that the whole world was created for me. What does it mean for me? For me to fix up. Shekiv and Shekal Olam, since the world, Olam also means concealment. Olam is Helen. Now, all this concealment and exile was created for me to fix up. Since that the world was created before me, for each and every Jew, how we move, and so it's understood that a Jew has the power to have an effect in the whole world. By means of this, because that Jew, every Jew, contains in himself the whole entire world. Even though that a person is serving God only in one little way, let's say he gives a little bit of charity or learns a little bit of Torah. Like we can see that there were tzaddikim that finished all their work in this world, and since that all of the Jews are kosher, as we have to say, that they did in completion whatever they did in the world. There are certain tzaddikim or people, whatever, that they passed away, indicating that they finished what they had to do. And even though they didn't serve God in all the possible ways, but nevertheless, it says that they completed their avoda, they completed their service. So truly, every single Jew, Kol echad v'echad Yisrael, betocho, inside of him. Kol kolel includes, every single Jew includes inside of him, her, all the different types of service of God. Kamuvan b'zeh, like it's understood. She'omrim b'kriya shema, like you say kriya shema lamita. Bein b'gil gulzeh, bein b'gil acher. We say, God, please don't forgive me if I caused anybody to do a sin, whether in this incarnation or whether in a previous incarnation. Because this is a proper reckoning. Therefore, it means that I can fix up even previous incarnations that I was in. Therefore, according to this, we can understand that the service in all of my incarnations that I was, they all are connected to one big unit. So, okay. So now it's understood. Each and every Jew. No matter what is his purpose or his job and responsibility in the world, Yesh Kan Eretz Israel. Every Jew can make here the land of Israel, and by means of this, to cause the whole entire world to be improved. Afiluim Adam, who Bal Esek, even if a person is a businessman, is working in the world. Below Gaba Bebeis Knesset, he's not working in a synagogue or something like that. So if so, his whole life is what type of holiness. So therefore, a person can think, what connection have I got to do with holiness in the land of Israel? Right? This is the people that at least they're found in synagogue all the time or learning Torah. In addition to this, first of all, you can give money to build a synagogue and to help learning Torah, etc. Also, your individual service includes inside of it all of the service. Even if you do a little bit, you put on tefillin, that includes in it all the service of all the Jewish people. According to this, we can also understand that every single Jew has the responsibility, lavi, to bring the future redemption to the whole entire world. That's the way we've had the butterfly effect, right? You do something good over here, it could have an effect, a tremendous, incommensurate effect in the whole entire world. By means of this, Shahu that you do your service, what you had to do, because that's what God did. God put you there, right? In thought, speech, and action, even if it's one little detail of a detail in one little moment, in one little place, nevertheless, you have the power to transform the land of Israel, and by means of this, to bring the future redemption to the whole entire world. So don't think you're small, because if you're connected to the Creator, so you're infinitely big. Obvious Peshutos, in the simple language, the Amdokar of Mamash Lifnei Agula, because we are now right before the future redemption, Tzorech Kol Echad, each and every Jew has to accustom himself to living in the future redemption. And what's this idea of future redemption? It means that everyone will be able to express all of the good potential which is within him. All the joy, the honesty, the love, the positiveness, the courage, the care, the integrity, all be revealed. Health, happiness. A person should feel himself that we are in the future redemption, even though we're not, says the Rebbe, but it's going to be in 1 second, it's going to really happen. Meanwhile, we have to make here the land of Israel. By means of transforming your day to a day which is the day of the future redemption. Transforming your place into the land of Israel. By means of doing the service in this time, in this place, in the ultimate completeness, thought, speech, and action. And then, wherever a person thinks his desire is to be in the land of Israel, make here in the land of Israel, then it'll really happen in reality. And we'll stop here. Tomorrow, God willing, will continue. There's not really much more to do. Should we continue? Should we say? Maybe too fast. Good. Okay. We'll do this tomorrow. There'll be a class tomorrow, Friday morning. Let's just do the Yom Yom because that's our custom, the Yom Yom. And we'll finish this sikha tomorrow. We'll do also a small sikha. There's another small sikha that I can give over. Very beautiful. We just learned. Wait a second. Oh, what happened here? It is written, Asali mikdash v'shechanti betocham. They should make me a holy house and I will dwell within them. Within them means inside of every single Jew. Not just in it. It doesn't say make me a holy temple and I'll be in it and so I'll be among the Jewish people, right in the middle of the Jews. No, it means I will dwell in each and every Jew. Each and every Jew, the inside of every single Jew is like a holy house for God's dwelling. The place in Jerusalem where the holy temple was is holy, even now in the times of exile. In Midrash Shemot, it says that the Shekhinah never departs from the western wall. The western wall, that was the wall that was closest to the Holy of Holies. It was in the back, right? In the back of the... All the desolation, all the destruction, that the temple has been destruction, that's just the buildings. But the holiness has not been destroyed. Also with a personal. Inside of every Jew, the foundation, his essence is clear and pure. Like it says, I am asleep, but my heart is awake. Midrash Rabbah says, I am asleep for the commandments, but my heart is awake for acts of kindness. Maybe I'm asleep for my acts of kindness, but my heart is awake that I want to do them. In other words, every Jew has something inside of him that's still awake to godliness. Every form of spiritual desolation, of the destruction, of exile that's found in the Jewish people is only in the external of him. But the inside, his heart, is always holy and complete. Have a good day with Moshiach now, God willing, 3 o'clock. Today, we're going to learn, we started learning yesterday also about the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple. And building the Holy Temple. The Rebbe said we should do it, so we're going to do it. 3 o'clock. We'll learn the rest of this Torah portion. It talks about the sacrifices that were made in the temple on the different holidays. How many oxes, how many rams, how many sheep, of this. And also the Haftorah. Let's see if we can pack all this in today. The Haftorah. The Haftorah is Jeremiah. Jeremiah, God's promises to Jeremiah. Jeremiah, a very tragic prophet. He saw the destruction of the temple. And we'll talk about that. So we'll do all that in 45 minutes. Be with us at 3 o'clock. God bless you all. Have a good day with Moshiach now.